Hello. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create an orthographic projection drawing using our basic tools of ruler, protractor, and pencil. The first thing that you are going to need to do is get your border and title strip set up. If you don't know how to do that or don't remember, I have a video on my YouTube channel that talks through that process. So I'm going to pull up an object that I have designed in Google SketchUp, and this is just a rectangular object with a cutout in this top right corner. Okay, you can see if I look at it from the bottom, you can see that there's an empty space there where the material has been cut out. And we want to create 3 drawings of this that make up our orthographic projections. The 3 drawings that we need to create are a front view, a top view, and a right end view. Those are the 3 standard views that make up orthographic projections and similar types of drawings, and will include all the information we need to recreate this 3-dimensional part. Now, before we get started, we need to know what the size is of this object that we're creating. So I have dimensioned this drawing, and we can see that it has a height of 1 inch, a width of 2 inches, and a depth of 1 inch. And then the cutout space right here is a 1/2 inch deep, 1 inch wide, and a 1/2 inch tall. If I look at this from a front view, I can see those dimensions laid out. 2 inches wide, 1 inch wide for the cutout section right here, a 1/2 inch tall for the cutout section, and a 1 inch tall for my total drawing. So we're going to create this drawing on our border and title strip, and we're going to take a look at our directions. So our first step, we can see here in procedures. After setting up our border and title strip, we need to draw a line 1 inch up from the top of the title strip. This will serve as the baseline for our front and right end views. So if I jump back to my camera here, this is the top of my title strip right here. I need to draw my baseline 1 inch up from there. So using my ruler, I'm going to measure up 1 inch from the top of my title strip right here, not the bottom line of my border, but the top of the title strip is where I'm measuring from. And I'll put that same mark on the other end, and then connect those 2 lines, or those 2 marks, and that is going to define my baseline for my drawing. For this exercise, I'm going to draw pretty dark so that you guys can see well what I'm doing. When you are creating this drawing yourself, you would normally make this line very light so that at the end, when you darken, it disappears into the background. Our next step is to draw a vertical line 3/4 of an inch to the left of our center line. This is going to mark the right edge of our front and top views. Now, we don't have a center line yet, so I need to locate that before I go any further. So I'm going to measure the width of my border, which is 10.5 inches. And so I'll put a mark at 5.25. Same thing up at the top of my workspace. And now I will connect that, and this is going to serve as the center line for my workspace. And now I need to go 3/4 of an inch to the left of that. So if I put my ruler right here on the 1 3/4 mark, I can put my mark over here at 1 inch, and that's a 3/4 space. And I'm going to repeat that down here at the bottom. Now I can draw my vertical line here that is going to define the right edge of my top and my front views of my drawing. So at this point, we have this intersection of lines right here, and that is going to represent the bottom right corner of the front view of our drawing. So if I jump back to my directions here, step 2, we're going to measure out and draw the front view. So if I go back to my object and I create my front view so I can see my dimensions, I can see that my total width is 2 inches and my total height is 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle that matches those sizes. And remember, I'm working from this corner right here. So I'm going to measure up 1 inch. And then I'm going to come over to the edge of my border and measure up 1 inch. And I'm going to draw a line connecting those points. And I'm going to draw this line all the way across to the right edge of my paper, because this is now going to serve as the top of my right view when I get to that part of my drawing. Then I need to measure 2 inches wide. And I'm going to put my other 2-inch mark up here at the top of my paper. And I'm going to connect these 2 marks. And now, by drawing this line all the way to the top of my paper, I have now set the width of my front view and my top view. So by using my projection lines in my orthographic projection drawing, I'm able to work more efficiently by drawing parts at the same time. I'm going to jump back to my dimensions here, and I can see that this cutout space is 1 inch wide, and I can see that the cutout space is 1/2 of an inch tall. So when I jump back to my paper, I'm going to put a mark 1 inch over from the edge. Repeat that up at the top. And then I'm going to go 1/2 inch up from my baseline. And I'll repeat that over here at the edge. And now I'm going to connect those measurements that I've just created. And again, notice that I'm projecting those lines all the way across my paper, both vertically and horizontally. And now my front view is finished, even though it looks a little cluttered. So at this point, because I've been drawing dark, I'm going to do a little bit of erasing to clean this up. When you do your drawing, if you draw lightly, then at this point, all you would do is come back and darken the lines that you would like to keep. So I'm going to just create a little separation around the outside to make this easier to see for you guys. And then inside, our cutout is in the top right corner. So I need to keep this line, and I can erase the other 2. And there is the front view of my shape. And if I jump back to my original model, you will see that this view matches the front view of my original model. So now I'm going to move up and work on my top view. If I go back to my directions, step 3, once this view is complete, draw vertical projection lines up. I have already done that. Step 4, measure up 1.5 inches from the top edge of your front view and draw a horizontal line. This will mark the bottom edge of the top view. And then I'm going to measure out the necessary features in the top view that have not projected. So if I come back to my model here and I switch to a top view and I add some dimensions in so I know, we can see I'm 2 inches wide, I'm 1 inch tall as this view appears. This is actually depth, not height. The depth of the notch is a 1/2 inch, and the width of the notch is 1 inch. When I return to my paper, I need to measure 1.5 inches up from this top edge to locate my next view. So I'm going to measure 1.5 inches. Over at my border, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches. And the reason I'm putting these measurements a little further apart is just to help me be more accurate and precise in drawing my lines. The closer they are together, the more likely it is that I will end up with my line being crooked. By spacing those points out, I'm going to get a more accurate line. So here's my baseline. I now need to measure out the depth of this object. And remember, it was 1 inch deep. And then the notch was a 1/2 inch. So I can do my 1 inch measurement for the depth. And I can do my 1/2 inch measurement for the depth of the notch. And now I can connect my lines, again projecting all the way across my paper. And now my top view is finished. Because I projected from my front view, I only had to take 2 measurements to complete my top view. And now with a little erasing, I can make it match the top view from my 3D model. So we can see that the notch is in the bottom right corner in this view. So when I return, I need to retain this line and erase the others. Again, in your case, instead of erasing lines, you will be darkening the lines that you would like to keep to make them more visible. And I will show you an example of what that looks like when we're finished. So a little erasing, and you can see my top view right here and how it matches the top view from my 3D model. So the last view that we need to create is our right end view. I've got some dimensions here so we can see that our object is 1 inch tall, 1 inch deep, and then the notch from this view is a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. The great thing about this type of drawing is that I don't have any measuring left to do. At this point, all I need to do is draw what's known as a reflection line that will allow me to accurately project my projection lines here straight down into my right end view. So how are we going to set up our reflection line? We've completed up to step 5. So step 6, we're going to draw a 45-degree reflection line from the top right corner of our front view. So if I come back here, I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to set it right on the corner, the top right corner of my front view. Not the corner of my vertical center line, but the top right corner of my front view. I'm going to make sure I get this lined up exactly right. And then I'm going to come over to 45 degrees. So over here we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, and the 40 corresponds with 140, so I can use this mark. 41, 2, 3, 4, 45. I'm going to put my mark right there. And now I'm going to connect those points. And I'm going to extend this line up into the top right corner of my paper. I'm now going to use the intersections of my 45-degree reflection line and my horizontal projection lines. And from those points, I'm going to project straight down into my top view. The simplest way to do this with our protractor is going to be flipping our paper upside down. And I'm going to line up my center point on my protractor with each of these three intersections, setting my baseline for my protractor on the projection line from my top view, and then putting a mark down here at 90 degrees. And then I'll slide up to the next point, get it properly lined up. And put a mark at 90 degrees. And then line up with my third point. And put a mark at 90 degrees. So now I've got 3 points here that correspond with my 3 intersections. And using my ruler, I can project my lines down through my right end view. Now, just like in my other drawings, I simply need to determine which lines I need to keep and erase the others. If I look at my other 2 views, here's my top view and here's my front view, I can see that the notch is located here and here. If I follow my projection lines across and through the reflection line and down, I can see that this top left corner is where the notch should be located in this view. And so I can erase the other lines. In your case, those lines in the top left corner would be the lines that you are going to keep and darken in. So here is my right end view. If I jump back to my model, you can see that the notch is located here in the top left corner. And going back to my paper, you can see it's in the top left corner. So my drawing is correct and it is now complete. At this point, what you would do is come back and darken the appropriate lines to make your drawing stand out the way it should. Okay? A properly completed drawing should look like this. This is a drawing I completed earlier using the same process as you guys are using now. Only I drew all of my construction lines lightly and simply came back and darkened my original drawing. And you can see how the construction lines disappear into the background. The final step is to title your drawing. This is called an orthographic projection. And then it is ready to be submitted.